Good day. We are the Group 5 and here we are going to present the two laws which protects both public health and the environment that we live in, all while promoting sustainability involving different sectors of society and ensuring accountability through education and regulation. Here we're also going to discuss each of their rationale, their scope and limitations, their relevant discussions in terms of urban planning, as well as our synthesis and suggestions of the two laws. The first law is the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2001. It was crafted in response to the severe garbage problems our country faced before its enactment. One of the issues it addresses is the lack of public awareness, since improper waste disposal has long been a challenge in many communities. This law also seeks to protect public health and the environment by promoting waste reduction, segregation, recycling, and proper disposal, which are all supported by institutional mechanisms, funding, and penalties for non-compliance. And also, it aims to maximize the utilization of valuable resources by encouraging conservation and recovery, which would ensure that resources are not spoiled nor wasted. And lastly, it highlights the importance of private sector participation, which recognizes that industries and businesses also have a major role in reducing waste generation.
So, to summarize the scope and limitations of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, it establishes a nationwide program for managing solid waste in an ecological and sustainable manner. The law mandates local governments to develop comprehensive 10-year plans focused on reducing waste through segregation, recycling, and composting. It prohibits harmful practices such as open dumps and incineration to protect public health and the environment. However, the law specifically excludes hazardous waste, infectious hospital waste, and mining waste from its scope. So, this law benefits the public by promoting cleaner surroundings and resource conservation while also providing local governments with clear legal framework for effective waste management. Overall, it aims to foster responsible waste disposal practices that contribute to ecological sustainability.
Next is the relevant discussion. 1. Source segregation and materials recovery facilities. Section 32 requires every barangay or group of barangays to have a materials recovery facility. These serve as drop-off points where waste can be sorted, composted, and prepared for recycling. The benefits include less waste going to landfills, cheaper hauling costs, new local jobs, and cleaner, healthier communities. But challenges include lack of funds and possible displacement of informal waste speakers if not managed well. That's why planners need to carefully choose sites for MRFs and ensure proper funding and support systems. Number 2. Prohibition or closure of open dump sites and requirements for sanitary disposal. RA 9003 bans open dump sites. LGUs must separate this into controlled facilities, then eventually close them. The benefits are better health, safer environments, and opportunities to redevelop land. But closures can also disrupt the livelihoods of waste speakers and add pressure on transport and land use. Thus, urban planners must design proper transfer stations, safe routes, and social programs to support affected communities.
San Fernando, Pampanga is recognized as model city for solid waste management activities. The city strictly implements fossil segregation, recycling, composting, and requires every barangay to operate its own material recovery facility or MRF. Biodegradable waste turn into compost, recyclable or sold to junction, and only a small portion of residual waste goes to landfill. Because of this system, San Fernando has achieved impressive 80% waste diversion rate, which far above of the national average. This proves that strong leadership and accountability participation, sustainable and cleaner waste management is clearly possible.
I think RA 9003 is still relevant nowadays since it is majorly considers the environmental health issues in the Philippines. As we all know that in architecture, planning is a relevance with thorough consideration of environment, and one of the examples of law that it has a strong foundation about the proper disposal practices, right, recycling, and this means it encourages to have a sustainable preventive measures towards every project for as for example requiring an MRF or material recovery facility. But somehow of course it also needs an improvement for some revisions, like for example, strict monitoring, incentives to compliances, and adaptation to the modern waste energy, and also mandatory encouraging the youth about solid waste management and about its awareness.
The next one, we have the Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Wastes Control Act of 1990. This law was enacted because toxic chemicals and hazardous wastes, if not properly managed, can pose serious risks to both public health and the environment. With the growing use of chemicals in industries, manufacturing, and even in households, the potential dangers became too significant to ignore. There was a clear need to regulate the importation, manufacture, processing, and disposal of these substances to prevent harmful exposure. Part of the law also required keeping an inventory of chemicals so authorities could identify which substances were in circulation and act quickly if risks or accidents occurred. Another important reason also was the lack of public awareness. Many people were unaware that they were handling or being exposed to hazardous substances in their everyday lives, making education and information campaigns an essential part of the law.
For the scope and limitations of Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Wastes Control Act of 1990, it is the Philippines law that controls the import, use, storage, and disposal of toxic chemicals and hazardous wastes, stopping these harmful substances from entering or being dumped in the country, protecting people and the environment. The law excludes chemicals already regulated by other laws but covers all other dangerous unregulated chemicals. Compared to the previous law, Ecological Solid Waste Management of 2001, which manages everyday solid waste by promoting recycling and waste reduction, RA 6969 focuses on a stricter control of hazardous and toxic substances that pose higher risks, handling of toxic chemicals and hazardous wastes, ensuring their safe management. It also provides a clear legal framework for government agencies and industries to ensure compliance and safety. Overall, this law plays a crucial role in toxic substance control and environmental protection in the Philippines.
To make a brief explanation, so one of the cases is about the Canadian-Philippine dispute about their waste being shipped here in the Philippines, and shipments of cyanides from China and other substances for that are relevantly related. And the case 3 is about the man who illegally dumped an illegal substance in a river, which is violating the Section 13. And in potential scenario, it protects the citizens from illegal substances, since it causes chemical hazards, and it could also contaminate the river and food supplies, and it might cause health risk. While in relevance of design, one of the most important consideration is some segregation areas, including MRF, and application of storage rooms to proper waste disposal, especially in establishments and especially in institutional like hospital.
The Philippine General Hospital, being the largest hospital in the country, generally toxic medical waste entity under RA 6969. Proper management of toxic and hazardous waste is strictly required. In feature each comprises waste segregation based on yellow biohazard bags for infectious waste, comfort with containers for shelves, and labeled containers for chemical. All stored in secure areas, these wastes are then collected by DENR, accredited haulers, and disposed of in treatment, storage, and disposal facilities. This system ensure the protection of hospital staff, nearby communities, and environment from harmful exposure.
All in all, the Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act of 1990, or RA 6969, remains very relevant today because industries, hospitals, and households continue to generate large amounts of hazardous waste. However, the law must be updated to address modern issues like e-waste, plastics, and pharmaceutical waste. Therefore, stronger enforcement, digital tracking, and promotion of safer alternatives can further improve it. In short, RA 6969 continues to be essential, but it needs to be updated to address contemporary waste and environmental concerns. In conclusion, RA 6969 and RA 9003 both protect our health and environment, one by regulating hazardous substances
and the other by managing solid waste. They are still relevant today, but must be updated to address new challenges like e-waste and plastics. With stronger enforcement and public awareness, these laws can lead us to a safer and more sustainable future. That's all for our report, and thank you for listening.